Hello, everybody. Welcome, Spider-Man fans, and welcome to the Spider-Man 2 Food Coma, our spoiler cast discussion of Spider-Man 2. Big game releasing by Sony. Sony's only released this year, but hey, you know what? Sony ponies, that's what we like. We like our Spider-Man. So we're gonna have a really fun discussion here. Hopefully, talk all about the gameplay, the story, full spoilers ahead. So if you haven't played the game, go play it. What are you doing? It's an amazing game. Buy a PS5. It's worth it. Not really, but still, hey, you know what? Live and learn. I think we should go into introductions. First and foremost, joining us here, I got Fusion.
Happy to be back on the podcast. It's been like 2 weeks. Happy to be back in the action.
Hell yeah. And then we also got Bench.
Happy to be here. I've got some things to say.
And then we have Jat.
I treated myself to 19 inches of Venom, and I'm excited to be here.
Wish you didn't say that, but sure, we'll continue going with it. And making his Food Coma debut, Moon.
First Food Coma. I actually do play 2023 games for once.
It's going to be a fun discussion. First and foremost, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Rest in Peace, and Audible. Make sure to like the podcast. We're a brand new podcast. We really like any type of support, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And also follow us on Twitter, Slice of Gaming over there. And check out our sister show, Slice of Anime. And also check out the main podcast, The Slice of Gaming, where we actually talk about news and stuff. But I think it's fair. We don't want to talk about news here. I think we just want to talk about Spider-Man. We all finished the game. We got some thoughts on it. I think I want to start off like going around the panel today, kind of talking about like our hour counts with the game. Basically, like, did you complete the game? If you got the platinum or not, and how many hours, and just like kind of a base level thoughts on the game.
Yeah, I was about to say, first thing we should do is separate us from who got the platinum and who didn't.
I think everyone got the platinum except Jet, right?
I didn't.
Wow,
Losers.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Dang
Bench?
it.
I did all this. I finished like the map completely. I just didn't like
Yeah,
do the platinum.
I looked up Minx's trophies, and he's like 6 of the easiest trophies away from platinuming this game. I don't know why he just hasn't done it yet.
Okay, well, fake PlayStation fan. But I want to go real quick, just around the panel, hour count and whatnot. Moon, we'll start with you.
I just looked it up on my not my iPad, my phone's PlayStation app. It says I clocked in at 27 hours for the platinum, not just story mode. Granted, once I finished the story mode, it was like maybe 3 hours for me to get the platinum after that, just to clean up everything around town. So yeah, I completed the story in about 25 hours or so. I got the platinum in 27.
And like kind of base level thoughts on the game. No score required, just like base level.
Oh wait, what'd you say? I was reading chat.
Okay, base level. Your base level thoughts on the game. Like, no need to put a score on it right now. Like,
Oh,
we'll
very
do that,
good,
yeah.
very good. I think
Very good.
Forbes probably said it best. Wait, where did their page go? Ah, crap. It's like it's amazing but not spectacular. How about that?
Interesting. Fusion, what about you?
Yeah, I'm similar in hour count. I clocked in 23 hours for the platinum. That's including platinum.
Oh
So
my
it took me
God.
about 23 hours with platinum. Base level thoughts, kind of with Moon. Like, this is a very, very good video game. I think it improves a lot on the first game, but it falls short in other areas.
Interesting. Jet, what about you?
So I played about 23 hours, and I almost exclusively just did the base story, and I did some like here and there, like some side stuff here and there, like the crime spotting, and I plan to do the side quests. Well, there's 2. There's the flame, and I'm trying to remember what's the other one. The one where you play as Miles and you're going to the science fair thing.
I will talk about that one. Yeah, I know what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
But yeah, overall, I think this might be my game of the year. This always happens when I really enjoy a game. It's like at the top, and then we'll see where it is when I actually go back and look at all the other games I've played. But I'm giving it a 9.5.
That's really exciting. And I also said no score, but it's okay.
Oh, oops, my bad.
Yeah, just take it back. Men in
Yeah,
Black
what
Memory
score?
Eraser. And then Bench, you fake platinum hunter. What about you?
I'm at 23 hours whenever I rolled credits, and I did pretty much all the side content, everything. Like my map's 100% complete. I just didn't like go the extra mile and get the platinum trophy. And I definitely say I'm lower than most of y'all. I'm gonna go with still score it, so Jet's not alone. I would have given it an 8.5, and I just have some problems with it. It's not disappointing, I would say, but I'm lower on it than I thought I would be when it like looking before the game released. I'm excited to talk about it though.
Maybe I just say like, hey, make sure you don't say a score or you're kicked off the podcast at this point because
I know,
nobody
it's like just
fucking
cull the
listens.
herd.
I listen.
I guess
I
The ones who
always
can't
listen.
pay attention.
you might as
Follow
well
the
just say
instructions.
all our scores because Bench is like, no, Jet's not alone. Okay, I guess I mean I'll go real quick on my thoughts. I'm at 28 hours. I love the game. I thought it was a very much exactly what I wanted, which is just a sequel to Spider-Man 2018. I do have my own issues with the game, but like pretty much, I blazed through this game in basically a weekend. I was addicted to it. It's pretty much all I played, and I absolutely loved it. I'm kind of sitting at a 9. I guess Fusion Moon, you give your scores too, since you're not alone.
Yeah, I'll
Uh,
go. For one, it's very interesting to know I platinumed in like 23 hours, which seems a lot faster than you guys. I don't know how that happened, but in other news, score, I'm gonna give it a 9.
9. Okay, and then Moon?
Yeah, I was like, I'm probably wavering between like an 8.5 and a 9. I think just for optimism's sake, I'll probably stick at the 9.
Interesting. So we got 3 9s, a 9.5, and then 7 out of 10 from Bench. So that's
Yep, you heard that right.
good. Anything lower than a 9 is a 7, apparently, on the internet. Anyways, I think we want to get into this discussion here. I want to start off kind of just like on a base level. I want to get into this gameplay, mainly web swinging. How do we feel that the web swinging was improved in this game? Do we feel like it has been improved for the better or for the worse? Just like kind of jump off of like web swinging
The
as a
basic,
mechanic.
I mean,
the basic as web swinging, I was already perfected, so it didn't need any improving, and doesn't feel like they really did. I mean, they changed the animation for everybody, so there's a little bit more life in them swinging around, but how it works technically didn't feel like it changed to me because I think it was already
it's just
perfect.
it's just faster, which
Is
I
it
think made
faster?
a big difference. It's way faster. You just
Yeah,
move
a lot
around the
It's
city way
really
faster.
fast.
Okay, well, granted,
can-
I played 2018 back in 2018, so it's
Yeah,
been
yeah,
a
yeah.
while.
Yeah.
Like you just gain momentum throughout the city, and if you keep going, it'll feel like this could never run on a PS4. That's what
Oh no.
Brian Intihar said in an interview. I'm pretty sure, like going as fast as you do, it would just like break the game if you like were playing Spider-Man 2018. So I just think the movement speed in general really just, I don't know, it made it more exciting to move around the city.
I mean, Bench, you said it best. Like, this game could not run on a PS4. I think I would argue this is probably the game with the best showcase of the SSD. I think that,
Yep.
like, it's Ratchet and Clank was close, but I think this is very, very much just an improvement, especially just the speed. I mean, Fusion, you recently played through 2018. Like, how much faster did it feel for you?
Yeah, it's actually I played like 2018 a month ago, 6 weeks ago maybe, and I think it's drastically faster. Like I think it's very fast compared to 2018. And 2018, like there was times where it felt slow, but I didn't realize how fast how slow 2018 was until I jumped into Spider-Man 2 and I could like immediately tell that difference where I'm like, wow, this is just way faster. Like I feel like this is what 2018 should have always been. It probably just couldn't because of the PS4.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with all of you. But there was one improvement, in a new thing added to the
The
traversal that
fast
they were
travel.
very heavily marketing. Oh, yeah, I guess fast travel. We can jump on that point actually, since we're still on the SSD. I'll be honest, guys. I only fast traveled once, and that was to get a trophy because swinging is just too fun.
I think I did it a
I
couple
did
times,
it.
but after I did it the first time, I'm like, oh, this is actually really nice. So whenever I had to go like literally all the way across the map, I fast traveled. That was probably the first time I've ever literally went, holy shit.
Yeah.
It was insanely
Yeah,
fast.
it's so fast. I probably fast traveled more. Like I didn't fast travel at all in 2018, but I fast traveled a handful of times in this because I don't know. I found we can get into it later about the web wings, but I wasn't a massive fan. So if I'd
Oh, yeah,
like
that's what I want
cross
to
the
jump into.
water, like if I had to cross the water, I normally would have just fast traveled because it was kind of a pain for me to want to have to go across that.
You could just go into the Brooklyn Bridge.
There's multiple wind tunnels you could have taken.
Yeah, it goes
I
by
know,
pretty
but
quickly.
I wasn't. We can talk about this transition into web wings now if you want.
Yeah, no, that's what I want to jump into is web wings. I fucking love web wings. I'm on the complete opposite. Like I think
I do
it's just
too.
It was great.
I think I just found them hard to control and kind of cumbersome. And I mean, the swinging's always been so much better. So
it was only cumbersome when you had to be very specific with it, like during those drone bird chases. Like I got myself caught on so many buildings and bridges because it was so finicky sometimes. But when you're just randomly going about the town, it's perfectly fine. It's only when you have to be very precise.
Yeah, for the web wings just didn't feel right for me. That's the only way to describe it. So I just stuck to swinging most of the time.
I mean, it's interesting. I understand your point, but like, I don't know. I just think of them as like an overall net improvement on the game. It's just, hey, you pull out a like big old like websuit, basically. What is it called? I forget. Wingsuit. Wingsuit. Have any of you guys played Just Cause 3?
A little bit, but not much.
No, and then never played a single Just Cause.
Oh my god, Fusion, let's get you on that. Just Cause 3 had the best wingsuit in gaming. It is, I would say, Just Cause 3 is second to Spider-Man for best traversal in any open world game. Okay, this isn't a Just Cause food coma. I'm not going to go into it. but like, my main point is that like Spider-Man 2 very much emulated the wingsuit from Just Cause 3 in the closest way I've seen in any other situation. Because like it's hard to emulate that wingsuit because I think they absolutely nailed it in that game, and I think this is like right there next to it.
I mean, it's an option at the end of the day, so you can use it if you want and use it if you don't. And I just chose to not use it as much as y'all did, which is fine.
Were there any other like thoughts on traversal, or do we want to move into combat?
Yeah.
Go for it,
With traversal. So this is one thing. I don't remember it being in 2018, or maybe it was, but I didn't use it. But when you were in the water in this one, like you kind of surf, and
Yeah, you
I
like
thought
glide across the water a little bit. I don't think that was in 2018.
Yeah,
mainly because in 2018 we didn't go anywhere that had water.
Yeah,
didn't
water
cross
was a big no. You would drown if you went into water.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. And the other thing I was gonna say, for some reason, when they added the gliding, I thought of, oh wow, this is just like playing Mario Kart 7 when they added the glider.
Oh man,
that's the game he goes to is Mario Kart 7.
Mario Kart 7 and Just Cause 3 mentioned in a Spider-Man 2
fandom is showing.
I respect it. I want to move into combat. I guess just like overall our thoughts on the combat. I will say right now I played on Spectacular, or the hardest difficulty level before like
Spectacular.
game. Spectacular. Okay,
Same.
yeah.
Same for me.
No, you didn't. I don't believe you.
I did.
I believe
But
it.
yeah, I played on Spectacular, and I absolutely loved it. I think it is an overall net improvement on 2018's combat.
Yeah, I think it's not drastically better, but it feels drastically better. Like I don't think they added that much to make it feel drastically better, but for some reason it just does. Like the way, I don't know if it's just because it's on the PS5 and like the DualSense and all that, but it just like my hits felt punchier and they felt better. Like just getting into combat, like it felt smoother. I think it was a nice touch changing your abilities to all be on the face buttons of your controller, because it made like using your abilities a lot faster than in 2018 or even Miles Morales. You always had to like open up a weapon wheel and like shoot your gadgets and all that. So I thought that was a really nice quality of life feature to be like, hey, you don't have to open your wheel. You can just press this button and this goes out and etc. Like I thought that was a really nice improvement, which made combat like flow better.
I think that I just, sorry to cut you off. I just want to point, like, I kind of miss a lot of the gadgets from 2018.
Yeah.
A lot of like tripwires and whatnot. Like I think that was like the one thing. Like I kind of wish they didn't remove so many gadgets, because like kind of the gadgets we're stuck with now, it's like most of them kind of just do the same thing.
I agree.
Yeah, I think the gadgets is a big downgrade. Well, gadgets are still fun. I kind of just found myself spamming the web webs at people because that's just what worked best instead of just like using gadgets. And I also think.
Go ahead.
You can go. I'm going to go for a little bit. Okay. I think while the combat is definitely better than 2018, it's nothing mind-blowing at all. I mean, you have the 4-hit combo and you kind of like wait for the ability cooldowns. And a lot of games go in that rotation, and this is just another one of them. Which, I mean, after a while, I found towards the end of the game, I found combat to be a tiny bit boring, as it was kind of just the same thing over and over again until they like take something away from you for a bit, and that kind of frustrated me. So, because I thought like, besides the Venom powers, I thought Peter's, like the web arms were not as cool as they could have been. I don't think they could have done, I think, a pretty cool stuff with that, and it didn't like feel super good to use. And then, while I know Moon in our private Discord shared a cool stealth story while he was playing the game, I do think overall the game is heavily less focused on stealth than 2018 and Miles was. I think just like encounters, they're not built around stealth. Well, you can stealth, and that's always an option. It feels like they wanted you to just go into immediate combat, and I thought that was kind of like not as good as 2018.
I mean, to jump on that stealth point, like I do agree that there wasn't like a focus on stealth. There wasn't like situations where you had to use stealth. You could just go in like guns a-blazing, but I feel like it works because like if I wanted to use stealth, it works on every encounter. I was able to do a lot of encounters stealth without ever raising an alarm, especially because of the webline. Yeah, webline. Webline is like one of the best additions in this game.
I would just say I disagree on the stealth because I think the stealth. I think I stealth way more in this game than the other ones, especially on like like the hunter bases where it was like the secret ones where they were high up in the building and like invisible and all that. If you did those correctly stealth wise, like you said, there's no alarm and you would never have backup. So if you just stealth through those little outposts and like you would never have to worry about reinforcements. And I did that every single time. Like I think stealth was an actual big part of this video game. I think the one thing is the trip lines weren't back, and that was annoying because they gave us the web lines, but there was no trip lines. Where I loved the trip lines in 2018 for stealth, like putting those down and like getting stealth kills. I thought it was weird that they added the web lines and put an emphasis on stealth with those, but they took away stealth gadgets.
I just think the gadgets in general is a pretty big downgrade. Because I mean, like in 2018, I can remember most of the gadgets. In this game, I finished it a couple weeks ago, and I can't remember really any gadgets.
I remember the most used one was the one that shoots everyone up randomly. It's like, here's an electric spark, but it sends all our enemies upwards for whatever reason.
That's kind of that's the big problem with a lot of like gadgets in this game, is that I really do feel like a lot of them kind of just filled the same purpose, where it's just AoE attack, AoE attack, AoE attack, each one of them. And it's like, pretty much, I wasn't strategically using them. I was like, multiple enemies, spam gadgets until they go
especially
down.
the concussion grenade. Like, I was spamming that a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, same.
I mean, like, I know the director, Brian Intihar, talked about gadgets and how they didn't want to make you feel overpowered and like a god. But I kind of, like, I think that was the fun part of it. Is you're, like, Spider-Man's supposed to be smart, and he's using his, like, technology to an advantage that just helps and is pretty powerful. So them taking that away kind of felt like a downgrade, because when you also think about it, it's not like Peter can't make those things anymore. It's just he didn't, even whenever he was up against a bigger threat in this game, which it was just a little weird in my opinion.
Again, I agree to an extent. I do think that I think what they should have done is keep a lot of those gadgets from 2018, or at least like replace some of the gadgets we got here with some of the cool ones from 2018, and just like reduce the amount you have. Like instead of like having 3 tripwires or 3 of these, make it 1. And like if you really are worried about making Peter feel like a god, but like Bench said, it's very much about like outsmarting your opponents. That's how Peter fights. And maybe like reduce combat damage, so you do have to have like a reliance on the gadgets. It's interesting, and I also think like it almost feels like weird that both Peter and Miles have the gadgets, because I was always like, oh well, the gadgets were Peter's thing. But I also understand, because it's like I guess they don't want to like differentiate the gameplay too much between the two.
Yeah, that was like a big thing when they went into their like first deep dives of the game, saying, yeah, their powers are going to be different. Like Miles will have all of his electric venom stuff, all the gadgets will be shared between each character. Like they made that a point. So they're like, so they made that like a decision like very early on. Be like, okay, yeah, we're gonna have these 4 gadgets, and they're just gonna be shared between the 2 of them.
I want to talk about Spider Arms. Kind of lame. I don't know. I don't really think of Spider Arms as like the best ability in the world. I was just like, it was a weird thing. Like Ben said, where
it was literally just a stand-in until you got the Venom powers.
Yeah, and then you lose them for a bit, and it's like, oh, great, I'm stuck with Spider Arms again. Like nobody likes Spider Arms that way.
I kind of like. I mean, I guess I'm not a bigger hater on Spider Arms. There's that one ability where like you spin in a circle real quick and like go forward, and it's like a wind tunnel with the Spider Arms. That ability was sick.
That was useful.
That thing would like destroy groups of enemy, and like if you upgraded it to where like it would stick enemies to walls, like 3 enemies or something to the wall. I thought that ability was super cool.
I got a lot of out of sticky situations just with the flurry attack. Just
yeah.
There's like, here's a bunch of enemies in front of me. It's like just smack, get them all off me.
What about those?
That was a good ability against brutes.
I mean,
oh yeah.
I think another big problem with the game is Miles and Peter get like 2 sets of powers that are like Peter has Spider Arms, Venom powers. Miles has his electric powers, and then like Mr. Negative electric powers. Once you get to those second set, like the old ones are useless. Which I mean,
really?
Yeah,
well, I agree with the Venom ones, but I mixed around Miles because there was like some variations I preferred the original set, and there were some I preferred on the secondary set. But yeah, once I got Peter's Venom stuff, they were all replaced with Venom instead of Spider Arms.
Yeah, for sure. It really like the Miles one. Like a lot of those Miles abilities are a lot better, like the original one than the new ones. But I just like the options at the end of the day, just like being able to switch between them.
It makes sense with Peter for the Venom powers to be a lot better. Like that's the point of the suit, is like he just becomes an absolute demon, like he just becomes an absolute monster that can destroy everything. So it makes sense that those abilities just trump his Spider Arms. Like that, I think story wise, narratively wise, like all of that just makes sense for those abilities to just be a lot stronger.
Also, Venom powers, you lose them for like 2 missions.
I still thought it was too long.
Bro has 0 patience. He is going to be struggling playing through it.
I think one of those missions, we're playing as Peter. Like,
yeah, like it's like too long. It's like it's 2 missions, and then it's like boom, you get your white Venom powers. Like that's sick.
It could have been that I decided to do a lot of side missions in that time, but I do think. So I think, I mean, there must have been an extra couple hours that I just didn't have them. And I don't like when stuff is taken away from me, especially the stuff that's like some of the best feeling stuff in the game.
I don't mind it because, like, to me, taking away the stuff is almost like it makes me appreciate it when I get it back. Like, really be more into it because I was using those Venom powers way more often when I got them back with the white Venom suit.
And the Venom powers are sick. That one where you can like grab like 12 enemies at once and you just slam them into the ground.
Like,
that shit was so overpowered.
It's so good. And they all feel so nice. Like they all feel just heavy. Like when they hit an enemy, you just feel like way heavier than like the Spider Arms.
I do want to go into one of the big new mechanics added into this game that was really hyped up. And that's the parry. I'm a fan of it. It's obviously not as good as the Sekiro parry, but nothing is in life. But like, I'd say it's close. It's close enough to where I can have a good enough time with the parry, and really and they really want you to use the parry in a lot of the boss fights. Like they have
it was straight up built into a lot of it.
Parry. The parries are very large.
Yeah, it's very easy to parry. That's kind of my thing, where it's like I wish it was a little like more tense and like I have to nail this parry just right. But also I feel like it's almost designed that way. Well, I think it's designed that way because you're fighting so many groups of enemies. There are a lot of times where I couldn't parry because like my mind was just like wandering and dealing with the other enemies. It's like, shit, okay, I guess I just have to take this hit or jump out of the way.
I was a little let down by the parry, honestly. Like it does its job, and the combat is better with it, obviously, in the game. But like, I don't know. I feel like there just should have been. I'm a big fan of like parries where it's like if I get this parry directly, it's like an insta kill or like something cool happens. I feel like in Spider-Man the parry would happen and nothing like crazy would come from it.
Well, it was because it was more of a get off me tool.
Yes, it was more like let me stop your animation.
Like what if it was like, what if you parried and then like what if you parried and you pressed triangle and circle and it doesn't kill the enemy, but you get that cool like combo attack?
That'd be cool.
You know, I still found dodging to look cooler and feel better than any time I parried. Just dodging as Spider-Man and kind of like going around the enemy's attacks and like jumping over them during a dodge, just so it's always felt better than when you like get a parry and something meh happens.
Yeah, I think you guys' points are fair, but like my viewpoint is that like it's only a positive addition. I don't really think of it.
Oh
like,
yeah, it's definitely better.
parrying was
Yeah.
negatively affecting anything.
The only downside to the pairing was just how much it was kind of forced into a lot of the bosses, like mini bosses. Like you had to parry, otherwise you weren't really getting anywhere with a lot of those bosses, or not,
Yeah,
not
like the
full
bear
bosses, but like
guys.
like the big hammer guys, a couple the sword guys,
Shield dudes.
Scream.
Oh yeah. I think one thing that could have been better is the visual language of the parry, because what happens, there's another attack, it's like a blue one where you can't parry that one, you have to dodge it. And the problem is the blue, I swear, looks like yellow. Like I don't know if I'm like starting to go colorblind or
colorblind.
something, but there was a lot of times where I was just like, oh, it's a parry, and then I was supposed to dodge.
I
think
kinda
my
agree there,
brain
though.
just couldn't catch
Yeah.
it fast enough,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah.
just pushed a button. Sometimes I dodged, sometimes I tried to parry. It always worked out badly for me.
I think they should have gone with a more striking, like big color, like purple, I guess, than blue, like a very light blue.
Purple's still on the same spectrum as blue, so that would be a color blindness
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah, that's true. What about you, Joe?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So one thing I did like, this was one of the big boss fights. I think it was with Craven, where like you had to parry in one of the phases. But the only thing I did was like, first off, I started parrying more, and also changed my suitability so that I auto heal every time I parry, and that helped me a lot.
Oh yeah,
And
every like
that one's
parry
broken.
bonus I could unlock, I got those because just how much I was parrying.
For sure. You mentioned boss fights. I do want to jump into that. Now, obviously, we're going to talk more about the story significance of these boss fights, but how do we feel like about the boss fights just as mechanically speaking?
Underwhelming.
Bro hates this game, guys. I am sorry.
I think the boss fights were really good. My one complaint with the boss fights, I felt like almost all of them dragged. I don't know if I'm the only person here that
Oh my
thinks of that,
same.
I agree.
but I felt like I thought they were very
My
good, but
whiff.
all of them just went a little longer than I wanted them to. Where I'm like, because they weren't adding enough variety in the boss fight to keep me entertained for that long. Like it wasn't like they were adding some new crazy move that I had to now parry or do this. Sometimes they were, but most of the time it was just like you're just doing the exact same thing. And maybe that was because we were on Spectacular and the enemies just had insane amount of health and like it took a lot of hits to get them. I don't know, but I felt like some of the bosses were like, you're dragging a little longer than I want. Like especially like the lizard encounter.
Lizard was
specifically.
Oh,
That
that
dude
fight was
took my
awesome.
whole day. Yeah, it was an awesome fight, but I felt like I was there all night. I was like, dude, how many times am I gonna do the exact same thing to you?
I found Lizard pretty disappointing. Well, calling up the skyscraper and stuff was cool. Just being in like the bland sewer, kind of like fighting him forever, became boring very fast.
I swear to God, you guys need constant dopamine. I fucking love these boss fights.
Yeah, all of them I liked.
Yeah,
I
every
said they,
single
I
one of
said
them
they
was
were really good. I just
absolute
said some of them dragged.
No,
And I do think there was a point between like Sandman and Lizard that was just like no major boss fight, and there probably could have been one there because it felt like nothing. Like I don't think there was a boss fight between like Sandman and Lizard, and that was like a long stretch of time.
I kind of see what Binks is saying, where it's like, I felt like at a certain point, it just started to become boss fight after boss fight after boss fight. But there was a time there where I genuinely was like, where are the bosses? Like for a good 10 hours there, I was sitting there like, I haven't had a lot of boss encounters. This is really odd. And then all of a sudden they hit me with like 20 in a row. But it was very odd for like a part of that story. There was almost no bosses.
I think it comes from like the fact that like they straight up used almost every villain in Spider-Man 2018. It feels like so they were almost like out of villains here. So
Yeah, we're
there's just
killing off. That's another thing. Is like we've been blowing through a lot of villains. A lot of them are dead now.
yeah, like
Yeah,
straight
I
up
was surprised
Scorpion.
they straight up
Hulk.
just killed a bunch of them.
I kind of like it because I'm like I don't want to see them again.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just like,
I like
oh,
it
yeah.
too.
just get rid of them.
And it just shows like
It
the
really
adds to
shut off Craven.
Yeah, it really built off Craven. And it Are we going kind of into story now?
No, we aren't. We'll go into
I-
it. I do want to talk about the Craven boss fights because there were two. The first one with Peter Symbiote versus Craven. I fucking love that fight. But the one I liked even more, which we'll talk about, the Venom fight. Oh my god.
Yes.
That is just that is like
Just to
I can't
clarify.
imagine how you say the boss fights are underwhelming as a whole. That fight alone is probably fight of the year.
Just to clarify, you mean Venom versus Craven, correct?
Venom versus Craven, yes.
I think
The other Venom fight was good too.
I think the two boss fights that were excellent, and the only two that I really liked was Sandman was a great opening, but besides that, I think Miles versus Peter and Venom versus Craven were really standout boss fights, and some of my favorite moments of the year for sure. Because I like one of my things in just stories in general is the kind of man versus man kind of like clash of people and beyond the suit
I know
or whatever, you know. So it's like Miles versus Peter. You're clashing. Words are getting thrown, and it's all just a ton of emotion. It's you can't really describe it. It's so good.
I think
Scream was also good in that regard, but I think Scream lasted a bit too long and was kind of repetitive.
Scream
I
did have a
fucking
lot
love
of
that Scream
phases.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was one of those people where I love the combat and the boss fights so much where I'm like, yo, another phase, draw me in, baby, I'm in. Give me as many phases as possible because they were just such I understand the whole point of Fusion's making where it's oh, it's an endurance test. I feel like I've spent my whole day fighting what's his name, Lizard. But I don't know, something about that really adds the imposingness of these bosses. Yeah, sure, it's fair to say I think the fact is that them being endurance tests is what added to the combat and the difficulty to me was making sure I could nail these combos and these parries for a long enough time to where I could eventually take them
It
down.
really makes
And
you
also,
feel like Spider-Man, who's at the end of his rope all the time.
Also, you get a checkpoint for every
Honestly,
phase.
Yes, and I do think. Did we get less focus over time in this game? Because it took a long time for me to be able to punch stuff and then heal. Because I would have to stall for a while.
I noticed that too. I thought it was just me playing on hard, but Fusion, you played 2018. Do you get less focus in this game? Do you notice that?
You do. I think you do.
Okay.
I think focus is
held back. I was struggling in a lot of boss fights, just give me focus so I can heal.
Yeah.
It's a different system because in 2018 it wasn't individual bars like in this game how you have your individual bars. In 2018 it was just one full bar, and however much focus you had, you could use it and that would heal you. So in this game you had to wait until your individual bars filled up.
I think 2018 actually had the better system.
I think 2018 had better focus too, actually.
I
think they wanted it to be harder, which is fine. It works.
I like the I don't know. My viewpoint is that at least for how I played the bosses, what happens is that for the first few attempts, 7, 8 attempts, I'm fighting, and I just barely scrape by. I need the focus, and they get me before. But there is nothing more satisfying where you perfect the boss's patterns, and you see that triangle plus circle, and you notice wait, shit, I have 2 focus bars, and I'm at full health. It's I don't know. There are few feelings in games that hit me that hard.
I think it's no one brought up the Wraith fight, which is my favorite fight in the game.
That fight is incredible.
I think it's the hardest fight, and it's my favorite fight.
Wait, which fight?
The hardest?
Yeah, the Wraith fight with the very first time you fight Wraith as Peter.
In the side quest.
Well, that one, I don't think that was hard.
Maybe I just stuck in that small building, but I was getting wrecked.
I got it.
Lizard wrecked me the most, I think.
Yeah, same.
Scream was the hardest boss fight for me by far.
Scream, I think, was my second hardest. Lizard was definitely my hardest.
Yeah, it's interesting. We all have
go ahead, Jet.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because we all have different ones. For me, weirdly, the hardest one was the second phase of the Craven boss fight as Peter with the bell, because that bell mechanic really
oh my god, that bell was ridiculous. I mean, I was just spamming the R1 on that bell every 5 seconds. It's you better not ring that shit.
See, I never lost in those fights, but I got so close to death so many times that I would just barely scrape by healing. I don't think I died once in that fight, but they just went on so long because I went on the defensive. I need to get some focus. Heal. Okay, now let's go back on the offensive.
I do want to kind of like transit real quick. How about that Venom final boss? I think it's awesome, except for the QTE fest at the end. That was kind of my like, oh, okay.
It was definitely probably one of the shorts. I think I did that second try.
Yeah,
It definitely felt like
hard.
on the easier side of boss fights.
I thought the fight was pretty disappointing. I thought the end. Well, the fight being at the high school was cool, I guess. I don't know. I didn't feel much at the end, which it goes to an overarching issue I have with the game, which we'll get to later. But I mean, just fighting Venom, I don't know. I just like didn't get much out of that fight. And the QT like whatever at the end,
QTE.
mumbling QTE fest at the end, I thought was pretty disappointing because that was hype and it was so cool. But also like, I don't know, implement that during the fight or something. I don't know. I thought they could have gone with more there.
I'm fine. I mean, go ahead, Fusion.
It gave me very much God of War, the God of War 2018 spoilers inbound.
God of War 2018 spoilers. Okay, say it in like 5 seconds.
I'm saying it gave me very much at the end the Baldur's fight.
Oh
where,
my
like,
god, yes,
Oh,
100%.
That's exactly what they
did.
basically did. That's, in my opinion, that's what they. Which I was very much down with it. Like I was not disappointed. I thought like visually it had really stunning shots. Like I had no problem with the QTE at the end. Like I have no issue with QTE if you're gonna end my fight like that. Like
Yeah,
I
because
don't have an
they
issue with
always
it.
make the QTE fight the final part of the fight because it's the biggest like spectacle of it because they can do like whatever. It's like here, just make sure you push circle, and we're gonna go off and do this cool cinematic. So
Exactly.
that seems to be Sony's bread and butter because I was saying it's God of War's doing it, Spider-Man's doing it. I mean,
Pretty
it
sure
makes the
Horizon did
most
it.
it makes the most sense than just like I'm punch. Okay, now he's over. Okay, cutscene. It's like no,
And
you
it
want a
looks
big
super
grand
cool 'cause,
cutscene
like,
spectacle.
You have Peters
Like-
and Miles like trading punches. Like it looks very awesome.
Like I was saying, it kind of leads into a more overarching issue I have with the game. Like with Baldur, I felt for that fight because I grew attached to a lot of the just the characters and all that. And I'll save what I have to say whenever we go into story. So I'll leave it at that for now.
Was there any other big things that we wanted to jump into with combat, or are we good to go into kind of the like fidelity of this game, which I really want to jump into?
Combat. The only thing I could say about combat is even though I played 2018 back in 2018, okay, maybe 2019 because of the DLC. It was so weird getting into that Sandman fight and just like it was all muscle memory, like just throwing punches and everything.
Yeah.
Like I just jumped right back into it. And I was like, oh wow, this is kind of crazy that I can get right back into this combat so easily.
Jet, you had something to say?
Oh yeah. One thing I will say just about all the boss fights, like this is the part I liked about it, and that's that each boss fight did have some sort of significance to the story. Like there was still like a connection with like whether it was Peter or Miles with the boss rather than just them randomly throwing it in.
Yeah, you didn't fight Bill from accounting. I want to move into kind of like the fidelity of this game. I just want to like right here, and we can actually talk about suits as well with this topic. But first and foremost, I need to ask: this game is beautiful. Do you guys think this is the best looking PS5?
No,
No, I think that's Horizon.
I still
It's
I think
either like
Horizon,
Horizon or maybe
and
God of War.
and I
Ragnarok.
still think Rift Apart looks better.
Oh my god, I hate this podcast.
I'm already with you.
I mean, the problem
Thank
is
you, Jeff.
it's hard to compare them. Like Ratchet to God of War to Spider-Man, they're also different
Yeah.
looking because you got this like animal sci-fi, you got this mythological fiction, and then you got like quasi-realistic Spider-Man. So it's almost hard to compare them.
God, quasi-realistic. Hell yeah. Man, I
a
love it
big
when you use
word
terms
right
like that.
No, I think Spider-Man looks fantastic. It's a obvious improvement over 2018, even the 2018
Oh, for
remaster.
sure.
Like it looks like a
Yeah.
really good
Oh,
game.
yeah, for
I just
sure.
think there's a lot of like Demon Souls. There's a lot of tough competition on the PS5.
Damn, this is good.
And like Spider-Man,
Yeah,
I don't think it's also the Spider-Man art style. They're not going for that straight. They're going for realism, but they're not going for that Naughty Dog realism. They can't do the faces
Yeah.
like Naughty Dog. Like they just can't. Like Insomniac's very good at what they do, but they don't have like that super photorealism in their video games yet. And I don't think they're ever going to have it because that's not what they try to do.
They don't need it.
Yeah, I think the game looks great. But let's talk about the things that matter. Peter and MJ faces.
Okay, I still hate the new Peter face. I miss the
I love it.
2018
It's
face.
too Tom Holland.
I agree.
I think it helped that I
Him-
played 2018 again because I really enjoy them.
No, because I replayed 2018 with that Peter
Same.
face, and I was still like, nope, this isn't it. It
Yep.
just doesn't look right.
I think MJ's face is fine, except the entire structure of her chin changed.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, you know what it is? It's that picture of her when she's calling Peter, like specifically Peter. She has like this like hand on the chin look, and it looks awful. And I don't know why that render looks so bad, but like in the game, it's like, oh, she looks fine. Is
You know what's really
just
funny?
me?
You know what's funny though
Yeah.
is someone caught like in a cutscene. If you look at MJ's phone, there's like pictures of all the characters, and it's you, and a picture of her has her old model from 2018 in it. I thought that was actually really funny.
Like,
That
man,
was
I
just left
missed
in
that
there.
one.
I wish I could go find it again. That was hilarious.
I do.
Did this game? Did this game? I know 2018 and Miles had like a character like gallery thing where you can kind of turn around the models and stuff. Did this game have that? Because if it did, I missed it. Because I like that stuff in games.
Did it? I don't remember.
I don't
I don't.
remember that.
Did 2018 have that? Fusion, you
Yeah,
played it.
What was the question? Sorry.
like a
Was there
character
the
like
character
model
model viewer?
gallery with like kind of like a description of the character.
No.
I
I
thought
think
it
it
did.
wasn't two though. I swear. I think.
I never saw it in 2, but it's in 1 for sure, and Miles.
I
Okay,
don't know.
someone load up Spider-Man and find it.
I said I just played it. I don't remember it.
That's interesting. I do want to transition over to like the new areas because they added Brooklyn and Queens. Made the map bigger. Apparently, it's a reused map, so it's bad according to Twitter. So, but hey, you know what? They didn't want to shift New York entirely. But like, do you guys think Brooklyn and Queens were good additions? Do you think maybe it could have been fleshed out more, add more to them, or are you happy with how they are?
They could have definitely felt better. They're pretty much just more city, which is fine for a Spider-Man game because I'm not looking to like for stuff to be super different. But it also like if they really wanted to, they could have made it a lot like more distinct. But I don't think they did.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought they were fine.
Yeah, they were
Like
fine
I-
because they all just felt like more of the city. And granted, there were a couple areas that were like, okay, this isn't, skyscraper parts of town, but for the most part, they all kind of felt the same.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I think I mentioned something similar in the Starfield, the food coma, but like I like that it was city and it was dense rather than emptiness of like, but a bigger area. That just feels better to me.
I mean, speaking of that, because we did move on from graphics, but like the amount of like crowd density and cars and traffic and
Oh
just
yeah,
all that realism did add to the immersion.
without question. I mean, like those, like just the fact is like I looked at 2018 footage. It's like there's like 3 cars on a road and like 1 dude on a wheelchair, versus like this game where like you have pure LA, like New York traffic, and not enough to really be New York traffic, but just close. I do kind of want to talk more. Was there anything from a graphical fidelity things you guys want to add on? I do want to talk about suits. I want to real quick, like, just ask, like, what was the suit you guys like kind of mainline throughout the game? Like, what was your favorite suit, and like, what was like just the overall like additional suits that they added for this game? Are you a fan of them?
I barely paid attention to them. I briefly on Miles used the one that you got from like pre-ordering or buying the game day one. It was like some dark arachnite kind of suit. That was kind of cool because it gave him a cape and a hoodie, and I'm like, Miles needs a hoodie. So I ran with that for like a little bit, but I always just went with whatever the story was, whatever the story suit was. I did near the end when I was finishing up like just platinum and everything. I did swap around a couple costumes, like I used the Spider-Man Noir and the Spider-Verse costumes because they came with a special side effect. Fun thing though, I had a glitch where because those suits come with like special effects on them where they run at a lower frame rate to look like the movies. I switched back to regular Miles, and that effect was still on there, and I'm like, "What the hell's going on?" And I thought maybe I had to turn the effect off, so I spent like an hour or so flipping through menus and online, like, "How do I turn the effect off?" And like, no, I just had to like reload a save point or whatever, or restart the game, and it fixed everything.
I guess for me, like I was like I usually like went with like kind of the normal suits, but the moment I got the webbed black suit from Spider-Man 3, like the Raimi film, oh, that was my main line. Because I don't say what you want about Spider-Man 3, that movie. It's not a good movie, but I fucking love that suit. It is so fucking sick.
I got Superior Spider-Man suit, and I rolled with that until I got the black suit, and pretty much stuck with that. And then for Miles, the one where he has like the hood and the cape, I pretty much rolled with all game.
Oh, we do need to talk about 1 Miles suit thing.
It sucks.
That
It's
last
so
suit.
bad.
It is so funny because they were hyping it up like Miles, like, yeah, I wanted to have my own style. And if you watch the cutscene again, it is so funny because Peter's basically just like, yeah, man, it looks pretty good. Like he didn't have the heart to tell him that shit is ugly.
Like, wasn't the Miles suit like an original already from the first Miles Morales game? It's like that is his original design.
Yeah, and like Peter was saying, like in that cutscene, like, oh, that's not an alien suit, right?
Was it true it was an Adidas advertisement?
That's
or was that
currently the word going around. It seems like it's true because Adidas. Granted, we don't know if someone at Adidas designed it or what, or they just forced a sponsored suit because, like, literally the day after the game launch, Adidas released a new line of activewear based on that suit. Like, you can buy the hoodie, the shoes, all that.
There's also an Adidas store in the game. Several, I think.
So Adidas is a big sponsor of this thing.
Yeah. They funded the game. Sony was not willing to give them any money, so they had to ask Adidas for help.
What's funny was I saw a lot of people complaining about the shoes as like an obvious Adidas sponsor or like basically a walking billboard. I never noticed the shoes. I was too busy looking at like the electric goo on his shoulders and everything. I'm like, okay, I get it. You're supposed to like represent your Venom shock with that thing. And I didn't like the hair coming out of the mask. That just kind of looked weird. I never really liked that in a lot of suits. I know the new Captain America does that. Wally West, Kid Flash has that in his suit. I never liked it on any of them. Always thought it looked weird.
I do think it's time we transition into story. That definitely seems like the big topic at hand, where the bulk of our discussion, and you can bring up certain aspects of gameplay if you want, totally free form discussion. But I think the one thing I want to ask right off the top, is this story better than 2018?
No.
Yes,
Dude
and
hates
no.
this game. Unironically, bro. Like Bench is like, yeah, it's an 8.5, and then over here treated it like a 7. Goddamn.
Yeah, I think it's better.
I think in some ways it's better, and then a couple other ways it falls off. It's a mixed bag.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think I liked the relationships that were formed with Peter and Miles in this one more than the first one. The first one, it was just basically Peter forming these relationships with people who end up being his enemies.
Yeah, I think I'm with Moon, where like there's a lot of aspects where they definitely improved upon, like again, like the relationships, kind of with Peter, Miles, and like really hitting that group fold, like Peter, Miles, MJ, and then you have Harry, and like we're gonna definitely go really into like Harry as a character, like our thoughts on him specifically. But I think overall, like it really struggles because I feel like 2018 almost had tighter pacing, and I know there's the argument about Sinister Six, but like I feel like so much of 2018's story felt better centered around its villain of Mr. Negative and then eventually Doc Ock. And in this game, I don't know if I was truly as invested in. I don't know how to point this out. It's very
this is
much
what
like,
I came to the conclusion of. I said this, I think, either in our chat or one of the few times we were hanging out in voice chat. But the flow from going from villain to villain felt better in 2018 than it did here.
That's it.
Where you went from the Sinister Six to Mr. Negative to Doc Ock, where it felt like a natural progression. Where here you went from Craven to Venom and at some parts Mr. Negative again. It didn't feel as much as a natural flow. Like it was a lot of like, oh yeah, we're fighting Craven. We got to stop him from hunting these villains and killing people and want to take over the city. I was like, oh, Craven's gone. Oh wait, now Venom's taken over the planet.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is that Miles, like there's a lot of people arguing that Miles kind of felt more like a side character in this story where he's supposed to feel like a main character. Like, do you guys feel that?
No,
Miles was.
I felt like
Miles was definitely. I think he was a main character, but you can definitely tell the side content was more revolved around him, as to give him more time, because the story is a Peter story, but also Miles is very much prevalent and important.
I think one of my favorite parts about this entire story is the Miles and Mr. Negative stuff. And I think they do it really well. So like I think those people are wrong when they're saying like Miles feels like a side character. Like you're going to have a little bit of Miles over like not paid attention to much because you're having the whole like Peter and MJ and Harry storyline of them being friends and all that, which they built up in 2018. But like I think the story beats for Miles and how many times Miles has to save Peter and how many times Miles has to like balance his home life and his mom and all that. I think they did it really well. And that's actually why I like this story better than 2018, is I think a lot of the stuff they do with Miles specifically elevates the story as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's the part where I'm saying I think this story is better in some regards, where I think the stories with all the characters, not only just between like Peter, Miles, MJ, but like other characters like Miles's mom and Genki and Haley and all that. I think where that's where the story really shines, whereas 2018 definitely shined more on the villains.
Yeah, and this game did have that advantage where like you had the 2018 and Miles Morales to build these characters, but now most of them were well established, except for of course like Harry and stuff. And I mean like you could kind of feel for these characters. Like there's that scene where like at the part where we saw Venom Peter when he went to Rio and he raised his voice at Rio. I felt that. I'm like, no, you should not do that.
Yeah, I do.
Can I say my
I want to
piece?
talk. Yeah, go for it. I don't care. It's a free form discussion.
I think this game is a good bit short, and that heavily negatively impacts it. I think there's just not enough to get connected. I think the game is pace, while feeling slow at parts, is also generally way too fast for the story they're trying to tell. And I really think that I couldn't get a lot of my problem with this game is nothing felt super impactful because I didn't have time for it to like soak in and feel for all the characters. Like, while the Harry and Peter relationship felt good and felt natural, I think there wasn't enough development in that for me to get super attached to Harry. And I think like when Harry becomes crime fighting with Peter, I think there should have been several more missions when that happens until like Peter just gets the suit. I think that was just a very fast moving this forward thing that I didn't like. I think Peter should have had the suit, the Venom suit, for a lot longer, and the progression should have been a lot slower. Because at some point it was like a switch flipped, and it was just kind of like all over from there. And then he got the suit off pretty quick after that. I think there should have been a lot more of that. Venom also felt pretty forced. Well, I do love Venom, and I think Kraven's a great villain. I mean, something that we always hear with Spider-Man villains, it's someone who could have walked through Peter Parker's door. And obviously with the villains that they went through with this game, that just wasn't kind of possible. And that's why 2018 kind of excelled. But I do love this game, and I'm definitely the harsher critic here than most people, but I still really enjoyed my time with it.
I think, if I can jump in real quick, I think Insomniac still hasn't figured out the second half pacing in a Spider-Man game yet. I think 2018 has the same issue where in 2018 you don't fight the Sinister Six till like the last 7 missions. Like you go so far into that game until you hit the Sinister Six, and then the problem with this pacing is the minute you hit something, then it just goes over the next 5 missions, and it's the end of the game. Like you hit the Sinister Six, next 6 missions, game ends. In this game, I feel like you finally hit Venom, next 6 missions, the game ends. Like they build up so far to like get to a point where the very first like part of at least the 2 Spider-Man so far, Miles Morales not much because it's a lot shorter and they balanced it better. I felt like they back-ended it way too heavily, where the back end feels so fast, so quickly that there's no payoff because everything that happens in the beginning of the story doesn't feel important when everything at the end is just so fast and happens. At least for me, that's like a thing with both the Spider-Man games so far, where it's like both of them I think have second half pacing issues that could just like I don't know why Insomniac has like backloaded both these video games.
It really comes down to like I think what you say there, Fusion, is correct. Like Sinister Six, like literally they were right there for like 2 missions at the end. It felt like so
Granted,
they really didn't feel it.
2-part boss fights are some of like my favorite boss fights in gaming.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. They're awesome.
Oh, they're great, yeah. But
Yeah.
it really does feel like it's like they almost had Sinister Six just to have Sinister Six, and I kind of want to bring up the idea: did they have Venom just to have Venom?
Yes.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Because I think this is the best symbiote story. Granted, I'm gonna tell you right now, the symbiote storyline isn't very good. I love Venom more than anything else on planet Earth, but the symbiote like actual plot line is pretty basic and whatever in comparison to a lot of other like a Doc Ock storyline.
It felt very forced.
It's like yes and no, because it felt like maybe exactly what you're kind of saying, Wolf, is saying the symbiote story is so basic and uninteresting that they're like, okay, well, we want Venom, we can do Venom, but we need to have something else to like supplement it. So it's like, okay, well, who else can we do? Craven. So that's where the mixture comes in. So maybe not Joker. Venom was kind of. I don't think Venom was like forced into there, but I think they realized we can't base an entire game on this, so we got to have something else too.
That makes a lot of
Like,
sense.
I
I could
think-
see it where they're like, we can make a Venom game, but we can't make a 20-hour Venom game. So they're like, how
100%.
do we? Who's someone that we can add into the? Which, Grant, I think it was very cool that we had Craven in New York like hunting these villains, and
Oh
like
my God.
Spider-Man was trying to save the villains that he has to put back. Like he just.
I feel like there wasn't enough of that. Like we need a couple
Exactly,
more
I
villains
agree.
to
For
save
sure.
or something.
Like where's
I
Yeah,
think it was
sure.
so cool that now as Spider-Man, you're trying to save these villains from Craven instead of like trying to stop the villains. Like you're literally on their side all of a sudden. And I thought that was really cool, and I felt like they didn't go enough into it. And just like three missions in, it's over, and they're like, well, here you go, next to Venom.
Yeah,
All of a sudden,
and-
Like
And
we
I,
had,
yeah, exactly what you said there, what Bench was saying about length, what length could have been substituted, what could have been added. Vulture is killed off screen. Vulture and Rhino wasn't confirmed to be killed. Like there was like an Easter egg of
Shocker.
his like head.
Shocker was killed off screen.
Sorry, every time
Yeah.
Shocker is mentioned, I always bring up that clip. But Shocker, like Vulture, why wasn't there like a scene where you try to save Shocker? And
Yo,
Vulture,
imagine
or-
a fight against Craven where you actually lose and like you're fighting him with alongside Vulture, like you tag team with him, but you end up losing and Vulture gets up getting killed anyway.
Exactly, like something
That
like
would've
that
been
would have added.
amazing.
Because Craven, I
Yeah.
think, like I'll say it right off the bat, I fucking adored Craven. He went from a villain that like I never really cared for in like any piece of Spider-Man media to easily one of my favorite Spider-Man villains now. Like
yeah,
his
I think he's a lot
performance-
better than Venom in this game.
oh, for sure. Like,
Yeah.
dude, I love Venom. I'm the biggest Venom fanboy. Of course, Craven's better than Venom. It's not even a competition.
Yeah, I think like we had the mission saving Tombstone with like Harry's there as well, right? And I think there should have been more of Harry helping Spider-Man because it's like one mission,
it's like
and-
basically
yeah,
two missions.
and it doesn't feel impactful. And then, like they should have put in the extra work to make during that time doing a crime Harry shows up instead of Miles. Like those kinds of things would have made it just that more impactful to give it that extra edge.
I did
Yeah,
like,
like-
it was a small
ahead.
touch, but when you're just doing like random street crime throughout the story, like Miles will show up and help out, Wraith will show
Oh,
up
yeah.
and help out, or Harry when he's Agent Venom helps out. That was really cool. And
Wait,
I think
Ken,
that's maybe I don't feel as rushed as you all because between each story mission I did do a lot of side content, so there was some time in between like these big game changing story missions where Peter loses the suit or Harry's no longer helping or whatever. So I did have some each significant amount of time in between those. So they did feel a little bit longer to me, but yeah, they were still pretty quickly done.
Yeah, and I think I am like I'm surprised Fusion's kind of on the point that he felt the game was a bit too long. Is that what you said, Fusion? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, I didn't say. I said I felt
Oh,
like
okay.
my only problem. I think the pacing is off. I don't think the game was too
Yes,
long.
for sure.
If anything, it's probably a little too short on a main story mission wise. Like, but I do not think the game was too long.
Okay. I don't want to
Yeah.
put two words in your mouth then, because
Yeah.
I heard that take that the game is too long, and I'm like, I don't know what you guys are talking
What?
about. This game needs to be longer, in my
Yeah, I
opinion.
thought
At
it
We
least
need like
for
another
story
5
missions.
hours.
100%. It's one of those things where, like Bench is saying, there's not enough time given to Agent Venom or Peter in the symbiote. Like kind of slow. Like he is that feeling of like Peter slowly turning into a menace, being an asshole, is really satisfying. Especially just like some of the goofy line deliveries. One of my favorites is like when Harry gets mad at him. It's like, why don't you pop a few more pills and say what you're really feeling? It's like, God damn, man.
Yeah.
Or when he's fighting Lizard and he's just like, this is why your family left you. It's like, Jesus, bro, we're trying to help
Oh my
you.
God.
He kind of goes in on some of these characters.
I love it. It's just I feel like there could have been more. It could have been more gradual, slower building instead of just like rushing through a lot of these like major story beats. It feels like, and especially like when Venom takes over New York, it almost feels like he takes it over for like a couple missions and then everything's hunky dory again. It's like,
Yeah, like the world is only like this big Venom disaster for like one mission in between, like you're just swinging around. Because I was like,
Yeah.
oh man, I can't do any of my like side missions, like do my science club stuff while this is going on. I'm like, oh,
which is so funny.
how long is this gonna go on? Like, I want to go do my side missions. Like, oh, it's only like the next mission. Then it gets all cleared
Yeah.
up.
Well, yeah, the Venom like taking over the world was a little too short. I will give the game the edge. The utilization of like the podcast during that time really did elevate like kind of like the suspense for the Venom taking
Oh,
over the
yeah.
world as like especially like Danica. I thought that was very well done.
It's
Oh, you
funny
listened to
because-
Danica? I turned her ass off.
Oh, she was really good.
It's funny
Yeah.
because before this game came out, I remember saying, and I remember other people saying that like, could Insomniac take that next jump in the narrative, like as a narrative telling studio? And I still don't think they have. I still think they have not reached
For sure.
the narrative telling of the other studios under PlayStation. Like they're still not the Naughty Dog, the Santa Monica. Like I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the way they're always going to tell their stories. I haven't played the old Ratchet games. I have no idea how the narratives are. But
I'll tell you now. So the old Ratchet games, they're very fun narratives. They're much more comedy driven. They're not like anything groundbreaking.
because like it just feels like they have not nailed the pacing yet on a single. Miles has really good pacing actually, but like that's a 5-hour video game. Like you can't mess it up. Like
I can tell you what it is. I can tell you what it is. As a long time Insomniac fan, one thing Insomniac values almost above all else in a lot of ways, and this is for better or for worse, is replayability. You look at Ratchet and Clank, you look at challenge mode, they want you to replay those games. They want you to go through their games quickly so that, hey, play through it again on New Game Plus, play through it again, check out like try different combos, try different weapon combos, all that type of stuff. They almost had like that rhythm back during the like PS2, PS3 era where they were really like, we want our games to be replayable, and it almost feels like they're slowly trying to break out of that with the Spider-Man games, but like haven't fully breaked out. Where like they're still like, yeah, replayability, that's number one, and it's almost like it shouldn't come at the cost of like the narrative really spreading its wings.
The thing is,
Yeah.
though, like there's nothing replayable about Spider-Man, like either Spider-Man game. The only reason I replayed 2018 a second time was for the trophy.
I think
Yeah, no,
Miles is very replayable, but I don't think 2018 or this game would be replayable.
No.
And that's my point, is that they are like very rooted in their old style of replayability in their games with the Ratchet games, but it doesn't work as well for Spider-Man. But
Yeah,
they're still like, well, we
which is
want to
like
make our
that's
games
fine if
not
that's
too
like
long.
your design structure, but they didn't give any kind of incentive in these Spider-Man games to
100%.
replay it, except for
Well-
experience it again.
I even think that.
oh.
Go ahead, Jet. You can go.
Just really quick. Sometimes I would go back to 2018 when they would update a suit. Like for example, they updated the one where Spider-Man had that like the paper bag and the Fantastic Four suit, and I played just to see how that suit was.
Did you replay the whole game though?
Oh, no, not the whole game. Just like swinging around.
I was
the
about to
suit,
say,
that's
it's
it.
like that's
Right.
based as hell if you did that, but like
Yeah.
Because I even think I know why they did it. Well, I'm assuming I know why they did it. But a lot of the side quests I thought ended very like abrupt or like on cliffhangers. And I'm just assuming that it's for the DLCs. That's the only assumption why you wouldn't clean up a lot of your game is because you're going to have more DLC content.
It almost felt like I was watching Mr. Matty Plays talk about this. Very big YouTuber, big fan of him, and he basically said it's weird how every side quest in this game is like all building up, and then it's like we're not going to find this guy for months, maybe even years. Like, come on. Like I totally agree. Where it's like you do these side quests, these chains, and then you like just kind of ends. It almost feels like it's so many teasing things. It reminds me a lot of the MCU, where like a lot of people, it's like no one watched Eternals for Eternals. People watched Eternals because it's like, well, what's the post-credit scene going to be? And it's like it almost worries me where they're very much getting into the teasing aspect of like their narratives.
Can I talk about my favorite tease though?
Yeah.
So slight spoilers because some of you said you didn't finish the fire people's quest.
Jat didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the end,
go for it.
So at the end of that, you do this whole train thing, and it's very much implied that
Oh my God,
the
yes.
leader is Carnage.
Let there be. Well, it's not even like they straight up.
Yeah, they
say
straight up say
Carnage's
it, but
name.
and you see he has like a case of the symbiote. He's like talking to Spider-Man. It goes from black to red. He says, "Let there be carnage,"
Fucking
and then
Carnage.
and then freaking Wraith says, "Oh yeah, one of his aliases was Cletus."
Yeah, Cletus Jones. I don't
Cletus
want to be
Cassidy.
that like. I don't want to be that MCU fan that's always like, oh my god, Easter eggs. Because I always complain, it's like, man, all these movies is just like bait and nostalgia. Listen, okay, I'll make an exception for Carnage because I fucking love Carnage. And then, like, he's just like one of my favorite Spider-Man villains that is never used. And the idea here is like, my viewpoint is, I think this is DLC because I think they want to contain
DLC also.
because this
Yeah,
I think they want to
because he
contain
doesn't
symbiote
feel
stuff.
Carnage doesn't feel Spider-Man 3, especially after we did all the symbiote stuff for Tuesday. He definitely feels more DLC than a Spider-Man 3 villain.
And I think Chameleon as well, which you find out about him at the end of what's it called? What was the drones? It was the drones. Yeah, at the end of the drones, you get the Chameleon twist as well. Which Chameleon is always like one of those Spider-Man villains. That's like, yeah, he's cool, I guess, but kind of on that Hammerhead tier where it's like, yeah, and you exist.
I mean, they did that with Tombstone, and Tombstone's pretty cool.
Oh,
yeah, I like Tombstone. I think, yeah, I assume the DLC is going to be Carnage and Chameleon. I think that makes the most sense for them to just. I think that makes the most sense for the story we're telling to like have them to be the DLC. Like it's probably. Do we think it's going to be episodes like it was in 2018?
I would assume so. That's the most logical.
I think it's going to be like. I think it's going to be 2. I think they want to avoid like doing like the 3 episode thing. I think they're going to do 2 episodes. It's going to be overarching, in my opinion, where episode 1 is going to be like kind of focused on Chameleon, and then they do like Carnage for the second episode, and like he's kind of the main overarching villain of the DLC.
What I want to question now is, do we get more expansion on what's going on with Black Cat? Because Black Cat was here for like a singular mission.
I was so depressed
and left. So I'm less like, no, I want more, please.
She showed up, said she was in a relationship already, and left. I was
and ruined everyone's day.
Yeah, she left to Paris.
And it's like that mission was awesome. That was one of my favorite missions.
Oh yeah, that was like really good mission.
Yeah.
Especially with like kind of like her chasing Black Cat like into the Arctic. Like that is absolutely fucking incredible.
That was just them flexing from the tech that they have from Rift Apart.
100%.
Yeah. And I was hoping that would be utilized more, but sadly not. And
I'm pretty sure that thing was taxing on the game itself. They could not do that more than a couple times. Loading an entire other world like that, it must have been crazy.
I love the call you get at the end of that mission from, gosh, what's his name? The wizard.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Doctor Strange.
Like Wong calls you or whatever.
No, he leaves you just a little note that says, hey, thanks.
Yeah, whatever it is, but it's just so funny that. Like, that's what. It's things like that makes me love this universe, but.
I mean, we could talk one major thing that was like, I don't know if you guys saw that one Twitter post where like the guy was swinging by the Avengers Tower. It's like, they got to be dead or something. It's like, how do we feel about like Venom taking over New York and then just none of the Avengers are there?
Apparently that's not an Avengers level threat.
Yeah, I thought about that. I'm like, there's no military, there's nothing. Like, Venom's taking out over this and it's just Spider-Man and Miles? I mean, Peter and Miles?
I will say no military is kind of funny when you point it out like that. But I will say with Avengers, it is kind of an in-universe joke with a lot of like Spider-Man comics. I learned about this where the Avengers just don't help Spider-Man at all. And like I wish there could have been some type of explanation. Like there was kind of that explanation. It's like the Avengers are on the West Coast. And usually with the Avengers, they focus on like, Avengers level threats, Thanos, Ultron type deals where, this is like universe ending in a way, or at least like affecting a galaxy. But also it's like, I don't know, Venom took over all of New York. Now there is also the argument where like probably time wasn't that long in when Venom took over New York. Like
it definitely feels like a singular night.
Exactly. Like it could have been like a few hours. So like maybe it was like, oh, Spider-Man does have this handled. If he doesn't by tomorrow, then you'll see like the Doctor Stranges and stuff come in. I do think there could have been some better explanation.
I just like the idea of like Doctor Strange looking out the window, all this goop. Everyone's like, if it's still there in the morning, I'll help.
Yeah, exactly. I do kind of want to move into Harry as a character. He was like kind of this brand new rep. Harry Osborn, very like popular character in the comics and all the stories. The best character in the Raimi trilogy, by the way, without question. I don't care what anyone says. But do we think he was Harry handled well in this game? And I gotta give Fusion his credit. He was 100% right. Harry was Venom. It was pretty obvious, but like still also like shout outs.
I
Yeah,
can't believe
I
that
wasn't
everyone just never thought that.
I wasn't aware of it until I heard Venom in the trailer say "heal the world," and then Harry in the game said "heal." We're gonna heal the world. I'm like, oh damn it.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
I
Do you guys think like was it too obvious?
Yeah.
I don't think they were
I think it was
hiding it.
fine.
I don't think they were hiding
Yeah.
it.
I don't think they were hiding it
They
either,
were
and people were overthinking it.
Well, that's the problem, is that it was like right into her going like, this has been someone who has never been Venom before, like as the pre-release hype. And I think people got a little too crazy about it. But then you really stop and think, it's like, oh yeah, Harry is kind of the only one who could have been Venom.
I think Harry was fine. I'm actually glad they kept him alive. I didn't think he needed to die. I think him being alive actually elevates the plot forward.
Yeah, I was stuck on that idea because on the one hand, I really fucking hate fake out deaths more than anything. One Piece fans know. I am just like that idea of like taking a character showing, oh, they died, and then just out of nowhere, Miles is like, let me try something, and then he revives him. And I hate that stuff so much. But I'm also like, it makes sense to keep him alive, and also it kind of builds up a bit better with Norman Osborn. Probably going into the Green Goblin tease for Spider-Man 3, which we'll talk about in a bit. But I don't know. Did you guys how do the others feel about kind of like keeping Harry alive?
A tangent to that was you guys beat it before me and we're talking about the post credit scene. I'm like, oh, cool, we're gonna have an awesome post credit scene. And I was at the point with when you become when you play as Venom and all that, and I'm like, oh, I have an idea of what this might just be. So I got in my head that the post credits scene, because we saw Norman Osborn saying, I'm gonna make my own cure for Harry. And so I'm just like, oh, they're laying down the groundwork here. And so what I thought the post credit scene was gonna be him making a cure for Harry, but it backfires and it turns him into Green Goblin. And I'm like, and that wasn't the scene. And I'm so mad.
Yeah, I understand that. It's almost like kind of hyping yourself up. But like, do you think Harry living was the right choice?
Yeah, I
Is
think
he
it
really
depends what they
alive,
do
though?
with. I think it depends what they do with Norman in the next game, because if they if they would have killed Harry, it would have been great setup for like Norman becoming Green Goblin, and because like he has it out for Spider-Man because he blames Spider-Man for his son's death. Now, granted, he could still blame Spider-Man, be like, you put my son into a coma or whatever Harry is in right now, or mortally wounded him and now he can't walk, or whatever they're gonna do with Harry. So they could still do that, but killing him also would have been like a great way of going out of making Norman the Goblin.
I do think
Yeah.
they've kind of backed themselves in a corner. Harry has to be cured. I think if he's not cured, it will kind of like tarnish kind of this game, because I think he's been through it. He was saved. He has to end up being cured in the end. And I think Norman will die, but I think Harry has to be cured by the end of 3.
I think what it's gonna be is that Harry's actually gonna go for a self-sacrifice play in 3. Like, I mean, if we're gonna get to 3 stuff, like I think it's gonna be some type of thing where Harry has a situation where he has to self-sacrifice. So it's
Are
more
we though?
so.
Because Insomniac just came out and said, yeah, Miles is now going to be our lead going forward. So
Well,
all
that wasn't
Peter-related
really
stuff might not
confirmed.
become.
I don't know. I look at that quote and it felt like more like a couple of dudes randomly on the team instead of like Brian and Dar saying it. Like I don't know. It just felt like they were saying like Miles is kind of the main Spider-Man. But that doesn't mean like we just relegate like Peter stuff to the background. Like it's not important at all.
Miles is going to be the lead for like the half the game, then Peter's going to get pulled back in, and then it'll be Peter focused the rest of the game.
Nah. I granted, we still don't know how serious they are when they say, yeah, Miles is going to be our lead going forward. If they hard go into that, I don't see that happening. But if it's like more of a Miles will be like in the first half of the game and then shit gets really fucked, so it's like, Peter, please, I need your help, and then he comes in like in the second half of the game, maybe. But it's hard to say until we know the extent of like how much are they really sidelining Peter in the next game.
I honestly hope that I'm not a massive fan of Miles being like the singular main Spider-Man, because I'm just a bigger Peter fan, to be honest. I like his story in the Insomniac universe more and the stuff he's done.
Well,
So
like, I mean, it's like Peter is like the one I prefer as a character. I'm a Peter fanboy, but like also I feel like his story is almost complete with this. Like maybe not complete, but like I think most of his arc is complete. Now I feel like Miles is the character who really needs his character arc to, grow as a character because he is this younger Spider-Man. I feel like the focus shifting more into Miles kind of makes sense. And I'll admit, I wasn't the biggest fan of like Miles Morales, mainly like the story basically just because I didn't like Tinker as a villain. I didn't think about her that much. So maybe it wouldn't work out for me specifically, but I'm also like, I want to give him a shot and see like, okay, can Miles Morales being the lead of the next Spider-Man game, like the main Spider-Man, how does that arc shape up?
Also, be really interesting to think of like what are they going to do next. Obviously, Wolverine is next, but that's going to be its own separate thing. Do they go into a Miles Morales 2 to develop him some bit more? Or are we going straight to Spider-Man 3 to do Miles' story, but also maybe have Peter kind of also be around there?
Well, I mean, you say Miles Morales 2. There's another character, Silk.
Yes.
Yeah,
could it
that
be
seems
Silk?
Now, granted, I don't know much about Silk's storyline, so would that be more fitting for a Miles Morales kind of story where it's kind of on the smaller side, or is that a more Spider-Man 3 kind of storyline?
So I'm not actually that familiar with Silk either, but I think what they want to do is almost similar to how they did Spider-Man 2018 to Miles Morales, where they introduced Miles as a character, like his kind of like start of his arc in Spider-Man 1. And then you go into Miles Morales, it's like this is his game. Now you have Spider-Man 2, they introduce Silk. I think that it makes sense to have Silk have her own game, or at the very least, Miles Morales 2, where she is like almost a starring role. Because I think she is definitely going to be a major character. Now, granted, again, I don't know much about Silk. Apparently, she dates Peter in some of the comics, so that's funny. But they're very much Insomniac's take, so it's hard to tell. Jad, you've been wanting to speak. Did you have anything to say?
Yeah, just with the story, like of course, Insomniac loves doing this in this game where they want to set up the villains for the future games, like Moon said with Carnage, and then another thing I'm sure everyone noticed was like towards the end when Harry was in the coma, you notice Norman is wearing green, and then when he visits Doc Ock in the jail cell, he's still wearing green. So they're definitely gonna
I
do stuff
think
with him.
like we almost need to come back to this topic once the DLC is done because there are so many loose threads still, which is kind of funny considering how many characters were killed off in this game. But there's a lot of loose threads still running. Like, is Mr. Negative still alive? Doc Ock seems to be back into play. We got that Silk tease, Carnage tease. So there's a lot they can do, and so it'll be interesting to see like, okay, what do they tackle in the DLC, and what's still remaining after the DLCs to a potential either Miles Morales 2 or Spider-Man 3.
Well, the question of DLC is kind of like ringing around for all of us. The big thing is really just like, what do they say for Spider-Man 3? I am of the viewpoint that I think it's Green Goblin, but I also kind of feel like it's kind of like the Venom thing. Like they usually like to have another villain. Like Spider-Man 1 was not Doctor, Mr. Negative and Doc Ock. Spider-Man 2 is Craven and Venom. I think they want to go for a second villain. The question is, who is that second villain gonna be? Because we have Green Goblin. They're not gonna have like Chameleon be the second villain. Like it's got to be someone very big.
I think I forget in 2018 there was no post-credit DLC like scene, right?
2018. No, I had a post-credit
Yeah.
scene. It was the Miles Morales tweets of him getting like the Spider-Man powers.
No, I'm
And
talking about
also,
like after the DLCs.
oh, after the
Like
DLC.
after like DLC 3, like was it, I don't think there was. I should remember it was
I
only
think
6
no,
weeks ago.
I think it was just like a tease for Harry again. I might be wrong. I can check real quick.
That
But
would be
anyways,
interesting to see if they do like Moon was saying, coming back to this conversation once the DLCs are done, because it'd be interesting to see like if the DLCs set up anything or we get more like teases for like whatever their next game is going to do.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna tease anything extra, but I feel like we have this list now of like what are they gonna tackle next, and it'll be interesting to see what do they tackle in DLC and what's still remaining that could potentially be for a future game.
And do we think there's another Miles game before another Peter game, or like another. Is there another Miles Morales level game before the Spider-Man quote unquote 3?
Yo, imagine if they just went straight to a Silk game.
A Silk
Cool.
game. That's the problem though. That's hard to sell. None of us
Yeah.
know. Did any of us know who Silk was?
No,
'Cause,
I only heard
she
of
looks
Silk
awesome.
like maybe a couple years ago.
I had to
I
do
Google
not.
who Cindy Moon was immediately after the
Same.
roll credits.
I was like Cindy Moon.
I knew
Yeah,
it
she
from the
looks
comics,
awesome.
but I don't know her like too well.
Yeah, I only know like little snippets of thing, and the most things I know about Silk is that she's a very annoying card to deal with in Marvel Snap.
Yeah.
I
And
think we can move. Or did you have something to say, Jet?
it was just when Fusion said if we should have like a Miles Morales like length type of game as the next one. I think if they did a Spider Gwen game, like I know it would be like kind of shaping their multiverse, but I think a Spider Gwen game would be really cool.
But we
Just a
haven't
short
introduced a Gwen character yet in this
That's the
game.
problem. We
Yeah.
don't have Gwen Stacy yet.
So like we
Yeah.
could, but it's gonna be like a long time from now after we have to introduce the character somewhere.
Oh yeah, and then MJ has to die. Yeah.
MJ's gonna die. You think?
I think the MJ missions once again sucked, although they were a little better.
No.
No, they don't. Nope, they're great. They
Also,
are
No, they
great.
were
completely
good this time
transition
around.
the topic. Before we get into that, damn it, I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, real quick, Fusion.
This
I
video is
looked up-
sponsored by.
This video is sponsored by Raid. No, we're not. What's it called? Fusion. There was a small post-credit scene at the end of the DLC, but it was literally just like just a small little dialogue interaction between Peter and Miles. So like, basically
okay,
just.
now I remember.
Yeah, you remember now.
Okay, so now after this,
he just played this
after
game.
Yeah, after this DLC, we just need another conversation between Peter and Miles, where Peter just goes, "Yo, Miles, that new suit of yours, it's shit. Get rid of it."
Please.
That's all we need. Just that little scene.
But to go into the MJ missions, yes, Bench is wrong. The MJ missions are great now.
They're so good.
I wouldn't call them
Like,
great, but they were definitely more tolerable than the previous ones.
I didn't like the first one, but the second and third ones were
The minute she gets a gun, bro, she's just
Yeah,
she's,
for
And she's
real.
like the most
Yeah.
overpowered character in the game.
It's like, bro, what's Spider-Man? And like, let MJ do all this shit. Hello?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say something that's probably controversial.
Oh no.
Laura Bailey was the best performer in this game.
I can
Who
get
did
behind
Laura
that.
Bailey perform? I forget.
Yeah,
MJ.
I'd agree. I think
Oh, yeah.
MJ's voice, voice actor
Bench
is
talked
the
over you. What'd you say, Fusion?
And Laura Bailey, she performs MJ.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say she's up there. I'm sorry. Yuri Lowenthal, though, I think he nails the performance of Spider-Man, especially Symbiote. I think we were all kind of worried about, like, he kind of sounded a little goofy in the previews, but I think he absolutely nailed it in getting that, like, asshole Peter, that Symbiote Peter. And I think Yuri Lowenthal kind of just proves himself to be, like, one of the best
Yuri
Spider-Mans.
is really good, but there's that one the one scene where Peter gets stabbed, and you're now playing like having MJ, like Peter's laying on your shoulder and MJ's like moving you as like Craven is fighting Miles in the background, which is super sick.
yeah.
But like the
So
emotion in MJ's voice as like Peter is like basically dying, and like I don't know,
Yeah.
I thought Laura Bailey, but it's so hard because Laura Bailey is like a master class. Not
yeah,
saying
I'm
Yuri's
a
not,
Laura
but
Bailey
like
fan, boy.
Laura
Like,
Bailey just nails everything she does. But I really was like I walked away where I'm like every MJ mission, every time MJ was just like talking or like having a performance, I was just like, Laura Bailey is so good at her job. She's just so
She
good.
is, man. Yeah, no, I think also Miles's voice actor, I think also nails it. I forget his name. I apologize. But like I thought he absolutely nailed Miles Morales. I do
I don't
think
think
I
there's
like
a- really
Spider-Verse
a-
Miles more.
I don't think there's
but,
really
yeah.
a bad performance in this game.
No,
It's
not
just
at all.
everyone's good, and
No.
I
it's
think
just like splitting hairs when you're picking the favorite.
Who do you
Venom,
think who gets a nod at
God.
the Game Awards?
Most
Like
likely
for best-
Yuri.
Yuri. I think Yuri should get the nod. I just think like he nails that Spider-Man and that symbiote voice. I do wish he said shocker. Come on, you have to do that at least like as a reference.
Yeah, too bad Shocker wasn't around. Where did Shocker go?
He's dead.
Oh, did he kill a Shocker?
Yeah, no, he killed Shocker. I think it was
damn it.
mentioned in the note. I mean, I guess like kind of we talk about like the voice performances. I do want to talk about two other voice performances, Venom and Craven. I think they fucking nailed it. Tony
yeah, they were
Todd
great.
as Venom.
Oh,
Oh my god, that just that imposing. We are Venom. Fucking nails it.
Oh yeah, he was great.
And also Craven. I mean, I forget who played Craven, but again, like just he nails that intimidation factor in every way possible.
I do think is interesting storyline of him like dying of cancer, so he wants to like go out as like the manliest man and like die in battle.
Yes.
I think that's a cool storyline for him to have him as a one-off villain, because it really makes you really question the comics sometimes of like there's all these villains running around and just causing havoc every single day. It's like, no, here's a more realistic approach of here's this one big bad who's gonna come and just wreck shit for a while, and then we gotta kill him off because we can't have this guy running around anymore freely. So that's just like a great way to like have him have a like an impactful story, but also be a threat at the same time that needs to be put down, and eventually, and he's put down in the best way possible in this game.
I do want to talk real quick. There was like some clips going around about what's it called? The humor in this game isn't good. You guys into the humor? Because I thought it was just classic Spider-Man corny jokes, which I love. I love the corny Spider-Man jokes.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
it was
I
The
agree.
bear joke.
Yeah,
Yeah, the bear.
cool.
I'm fresh.
Shut up, honey.
Like, come on, you gotta give Yuri Lowenthal the voice actor award just for that.
That was a little silly.
Yeah, I mean, like that's just how Spider-Man
That's
is.
Spider-Man though. He's always saying like the worst things at the worst
Oh yeah,
time.
for sure. I think I think Insomniac does really well at like the Spider-Man writing, like actually writing the character. I think they do really good.
For people who platinum the game, so Bench and Jet sit down. Did you guys had a lot of fun going for this platinum? Like, did you think it was more fun than 2018's? Because I'll say, like, I'm like mixed.
I don't
I
say it
think-
was fun. I don't think it was more fun, but it was definitely easier, and I appreciated that. Where I realized, like maybe halfway or a third through the game, I realized the spider bots are just replacement backpacks. The taskmasters are just now the Mysterio things. So it's literally all the same stuff again, just reskinned, but they weren't as grueling as this time. Like, but the biggest thing that I was worried about when I was doing it, because with the taskmasters you had to get gold on all of like gold rankings on all of them. Here, you just have to at least beat it. You didn't need any kind of like special ranking. So I appreciated that. So I appreciated Insomniac making the platinum just slightly easier, not having to like be a skill issue. But at the same time, I'm also like, Insomniac, this is just the same exact shit, just reskinned.
Yeah, I think go for a fusion.
I was just I think not having me have to do 250 crimes across your map immediately makes this platinum just better. Like
Oh yeah.
the fact that I didn't have to sit there and do 20 crimes in each section, like in each division of the map, was like, it made me so happy when I was just like, I was done. Like I got to the end and I was like, I just had to clean up a few items, and I was like, there was no grinding for this platinum, which I always appreciate when it's like, I don't have to grind after the story ends.
You know, it's really funny was when I started the game and I finally had like the freedom of New York to finally just start swinging around. I started doing random crimes because I'm like, I don't want to do all these at the end of the game for the platinum. And I'm like, oh, and then I realized, oh, I don't have to do that. Awesome.
that was a funny thing because like I didn't realize that crimes were no longer like they were infinite now, which I think is an overall like W change because like because what happens is that 2018 it's like I want to swing around and do crimes. It's like, oh, I already did all the crimes. So like I think
spider bots were annoying. The fact that they weren't on the map. Granted, I didn't have to find many at the end, but it was really annoying that like if you had like I can imagine if you're someone who didn't just grab them when you swung by for some reason, like you would have to go back and find 42 that aren't marked on the map. Like that would have been really, really annoying.
Especially the worst ones were the ones that were like high up in the sky, and you
Yeah.
had to go to like some other building. You had to like go to some other. I remember this one specifically. It was near the end when I was cleaning them all up, and there was one in Hell's Kitchen. I had to go to another district just to find another building tall enough for me to jump off of and then web wing it, and I missed it the first try, so I had to go back to the building, jump off, and web wing it again to try to get this damn spider bot that was floating in midair.
That ending was just an Easter egg, though. That won't lead to anything. Can we all agree there?
Yeah, it was just an Easter egg. I don't think that's like
It's
adding
tied to,
anything
I
to
think, from what I've gathered, it's tied to the Activision Spider-Man trilogy games. That
Yeah,
character.
the Edge of Time.
Yeah, the Edge of Time games.
Yeah, Edge of
Outer
Time.
Dimensions.
And
Yeah.
Shattered Dimensions. That's it.
I should
Very
really
nice.
watch a recap of those games. They seemed interesting.
They are
Oh.
funny. Yeah.
Let's hope there's no
yeah.
multiverse happening.
Yeah. God no. So here's my thing when it comes to side content. I was disappointed with the side content purely because there wasn't more of it. And I know I always talk about bloat in games, but my thing with Spider-Man is that I just want an excuse to keep playing. And I felt like I had that feeling when I finished up all the districts. It was like, oh, that's it. I feel like
That's
I
it.
could have had at the very least 5 or 6 more hours more. And I think it really comes down to length. I feel like this game was too short. It was cut down in so many ways. And there was a lot of bad bloat in 2018. But I also semi-forgive it because I'm I just really love swinging and I love this world, and I'm fine with the blow if if 30 hours in your traversal is still fun, then I am fine with some blow. That's kind of my viewpoint where it at the end of the day it's optional. The platinum is an optional thing to go for, and I think what could have benefited is just a few more things to kind of do some weird challenges, some goofy stuff, and that's kind of why I'm counting down the days for that DLC where I just want an excuse to go back and do more stuff because I still go back and swing around and screw around in that world just for the hell of it. But I'm I want an excuse to go back.
You're telling me you were missing the screwball missions.
No, okay,
I see.
let's calm down. Let's calm down.
No, I don't agree actually, but
Wow.
I think it felt because you go back with blow. I don't want them to. There was no reason. Even the spider bots I felt were blow in a way where I'm I don't need 42 of these on the map just cause.
But I just
for no reward. There's no reward at the end. I understand why people like it, especially you, where you're you just want to experience the world more and have a reason to be in it. But if the reward at the end of your side stuff isn't rewarding to me, I feel more frustrated that I spent time doing it. I understand I'm in your world and you're getting me more hours and I'm still swinging and it's still fun to a certain point, but everyone does these side content stuff for the reward at the end, for a rewarding hey, I did this, I got to see this, and some people didn't get to see it because they didn't do it. When you're giving us side stuff that isn't Spider-Man 2 does it well, so most of the side stuff does have rewards at the end, but there's plenty of games where they just add a ton of bloat and it's never rewarding at the end, and you're saying they're why did I do this other than just check marking? You're just sitting there checking off a list just to say you did it.
Well, it seems like it was almost built. It seems like it was almost built around we know this stuff is going to be easy, so everything works towards the platinum because doing all the side missions gives you that cutscene. Now, here's the other question for the people who have played 2018 more recently than I did. Did the side missions like the Taskmaster stuff, the Screwball stuff, all that, did that actually have a technical story attached to that where you had this story end cutscene? Because that's what all the ones in Spider-Man 2 were they were their own side stories in a way that led to a somewhat, sometimes not interesting, sometimes interesting cutscene that kind of wrapped up the story a little bit. So, but what I found interesting is they all led back into the platinum where some of the side stories give you trophies, but also they give you suits, which is part of getting the platinum. To unlock all the suits, you have to do all the side content, and that's also clearing all the districts. That's also part of the platinum. So it's very nice that everything, even though it's not really that bloated, it all works together towards the platinum. Whereas so many other things in other games, you have to go out of your way to do specific things for the platinum. Whereas they've nailed into everything you do work towards the platinum, and I appreciate that.
I see. Yeah, I see. I think the one thing I probably would have liked is maybe one more of a side villain activity, one more of the Taskmaster type stuff, or a mysterious one of
That's
those.
what I yeah.
A story
Exactly.
that would have been nice, but like we said, what villains do they have left, or what characters do they have left to throw that into this game and then still have to make it a whole nother Spider-Man game?
And I understand your viewpoint, Fusion, 100%. My I guess I do think the rewards should be better for sure. Speaking
The
for
reward
myself,
is the platinum. That's what it's come down to. Is the reward is the platinum.
Speaking for myself, I don't do it for the reward. reward. I do it for the experience. You're talking to a man who 100%ed Super Mario Sunshine. There ain't no reward at the end of that game. You get a fucking picture. But I did it because I love the game, and that's like just what I like to do is do these things for the sake of playing the game for an even longer amount of time. And I think maybe I'm in the minority, but like, yeah, I do think like some better rewards. But like, as you say, if you create this system, this traversal system that's this good, and you don't give me enough to play around with in this world, then that's just a disappointment on my end, because it's like you didn't give me enough to have fun with this amazing system you gave me.
Also, I will say I loved the final fight with Mysterio. That was
Yeah, that was
awesome.
awesome.
Oh yeah, that is a very good fight.
That was trippy with being like trapped in the snow globe and all that. That was awesome. Like
that's my favorite boss fight. Sorry.
Yeah, in some ways, I almost like that more than Venom fight.
That's my favorite boss fight. I kind of forgot about that.
I will say, I think. Well, I hope that I'm fine with an in-between game, but I hope the Spider-Man 3 game is the last Spider-Man game Insomniac makes for like a clean like decade plus. I don't want anything after that from them Spider-Man wise.
Let me ask this.
Yeah, go for it.
How for the people who played Star Wars Jedi Survivor, how that game felt like a second entry to get to a third game. Does Spider-Man 2 feel like just a second entry to get to a third game, or does it feel like a full-flagged second game?
No, it could end
It's a
here.
second game.
Okay.
Venom is too substantial of an antagonist to feel like this is just an in-between point. Jedi Survivor felt like an in-between point.
Jedi Survivor felt like an in-between point.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think this game definitely feels like it's building up something else more than 2018 did. Although it's still way more of its own story as well.
I mean, it doesn't really, because most of Peter's enemies are either dead or retired in some kind of way, or just kind of inactive. Now, they definitely tease like Doc Ock is back in play, and somehow Norman's coercing him into working or something.
Yeah, there's that theory going around that they're going to adapt Superior Spider-Man, which I hate. I hate that idea.
That'd be very
so
interesting.
Much. If you don't know, Superior Spider-Man is the story where Doc Ock basically takes control of Peter Parker and like his brain, and is able to just like acts like Peter and whatnot. And I fucking hate that idea because that means Peter dies.
I mean, that would work because if we went along with the idea that Miles is now the new leading Spider-Man. So if we have Miles taking the charge of the story and we have to fight a Doc Ock controlled Peter, that'd be an interesting story.
Peter could die though next game. That's definitely a possibility.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the game though. I don't want it at the beginning of the game. Like if it was the Superior Spider-Man story, then they would have to kill him at the beginning of the game. And I just don't think that would work. I feel like you'd have to do it as almost like an end twist, like, oh, Peter Parker dies. And I do think Peter dies at the end of the third game.
You know, I'm starting to really buy that into that idea now, because where Doc Ock has been built up so far, he's this guy who's suffering from a disease that's making his body pretty useless. So he would be definitely motivated, like, well, what if I just took Spider-Man's body? He's an able-bodied person. Like, I can be a better Spider-Man than him, and leads on a whole Superior Spider-Man storyline. I could definitely see that. I'm now into that idea. Granted, I don't like it, but I buy into that it's possible. I don't like it either, but I buy that it's possible.
I don't know if they would have put that suit in the game though if they planned to adapt that.
Yeah, that's kind of. I mean, like that's the case, but I also think it's like also just fan service. Like, oh, yeah, Superior Spider-Man suit because fan service. People want to see it.
But then Silk has to come. Obviously, with Silk being the end credit scene, clearly that's like a focus of some kind. Now, Peter dying, Miles taking over as the primary Spider-Man, and having a Silk side character. We're kind of just moving along the line. Like Peter picks up Miles picks up Silk. That could be interesting. That could be something.
It's tough. I do think it's gonna be like. We don't really know what they're going to do because they don't really see it. This is Insomniac's story. This is how Insomniac wants to do it. I do want to kind of bring in this question of Wolverine. Is Wolverine going to play a role in the Insomniac universe? We know they take place in the same universe. Or do they want to avoid that crossover BS that a lot of people are starting to get tired of?
I think, I think the best they'll do is just small hints, Easter eggs here and there, but nothing too major to tie
Yeah,
the games. I think,
I think it's a majority going to be its standalone thing, but there'll be like a scene or a line or something that'll to let the casual audience, like obviously we all here who pay attention to the gaming sphere have heard the reports that yeah, this Wolverine game takes place in the same universe as the Spider-Man games, whereas the casual audience are just going to buy the Wolverine games like, oh, I like the Spider-Man game, I'm going to buy this Wolverine game. Oh wait, they're made by the same studio. Actually, they're probably not even going to notice it's made by the same studio, but then they have to be force-fed the information like, hey, this is in the same universe as fucking Spider-Man, take this information. So I think outside of that, just like a quick nod to say, yeah, this is the same universe, I think it'll probably be a standalone thing. Now, here's the question. If Insomniac is done with Spider-Man after like 3, then do they move on to like Wolverine, or do they move on to like almost like an Insomniac X-Men kind of storyline? I guess it really depends what the story of Wolverine is.
Kind of pulling on. I think before we get into our final thoughts on this game, was there any like big topics you guys wanted to kind of jump into?
I think I said
I think
everything.
I was just saying, I think I covered everything.
I was like, I talked
Just say you
about.
want to go to bed, Fusion.
No, I just think I don't
talked
think
about-
I think
We
we've
barely
talked
talked about it.
2 hours.
We barely talked about it though. Kind of with Miles and Mr. Negative. That plotline was amazing. That's easily one of my
Yeah, that
favorite.
was
Oh yeah,
great.
it's my favorite plot
Oh,
line
yeah.
in the game.
Mr.
Same,
Negative,
yeah.
honestly, is like one of my characters across the like 2 games so far.
100%, yeah. And
Yeah.
I love that line of like Miles basically saying it's like, I can't forgive you, but I have to stop holding on to this hatred. And it's like that something about that just really hit for me specifically.
Wow.
Same. That felt powerful.
Sounds like another Sony game. Anyways,
Okay, don't bring us like this is the like, oh, I want to bring Last of Us Part 2 into every conversation.
no,
Let's chill
no.
out.
It's just funny though. People like it here, but not other places. Anyways,
Okay, well, no, that's another discussion.
does
But yeah,
anyone know
that's.
who the voice actor is for Mr. Negative?
I can check real quick. Mr.
I don't think it's
Negative.
anyone like of big name status.
Stephen Young. Well, yeah.
I haven't heard of him. I just
Wow,
wondered
okay,
if he
so
was
you
like.
don't know.
No, I just wondered if he was like in more games or something. If I would have heard of him, but I don't think so.
He wanted to know if he was in The Last of Us.
No, I know he's not in the
Oh,
last.
he's in The Last of Us? Never mind, this game's better.
Oh gosh, he's
Yeah,
in
he's
Ghostwire.
scavenger number 3.
He's in Ghostwire Tokyo. I take everything back.
Your favorite.
Uh,
But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Unless like last minute, or are we good for final thoughts?
I think I've said everything. I gave my comparisons on the story. Talked about my interest. I wanted to say thank you for the easy platinum and how I liked actually kind of like Mysterio's final boss fight more than Venom's in some way.
Based.
Oh, wait.
Go for it,
There's just one quick thing. This sounds really weird, but like, of course, with the PS5 technology, with the faster speeds, like once you load the game, you get to the game straight up, right? In 2018, I kind of like, you get to see the Insomniac logo, you hear the piano, and the waiting, and like I felt like that just added to it for some reason. But
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I do want to point out there were a lot of people saying this game was like buggy or anything. Did you guys encounter major bugs or anything like to the point where like you feel like it should have been delayed? Because I don't think there was anything that substantial.
I did have one bug of I was traveling. It was like a part where you're like crawling on some pipes in a Craven base, and for some reason like you're supposed to like L2 R2 zipline onto another pipe, but that prompt never came up for me. So I kind of was just stuck there on this pipe. I couldn't move anywhere. So I had to like reload the last point, but it wasn't a big deal. It was like 30 seconds before. And so thankfully there was a lot of auto save points in this game. So when something like that did happen, it was a quick fix. But the only other problem I ran into is just sometimes, and of course this is only happens with like the more frantic parts, like with the following of the bird drones. I got stuck on walls a lot and fences a couple times and other things where it was like the game almost became unresponsive to what I was trying to do on my controller. Like I was trying to jump off it or zip onto something else, but it never responded. So I don't know if that was just me being bad or if something was going with the game, but overall, no, there was no technical issues on my end.
There was like one small one on my end where what happened was that like this is the part where you go into the sewers and you see the off-script stuff, and then you kill a bunch of enemies, and then you have to use this laptop. And now after killing the enemies, I tried using the laptop, but it wouldn't like give the prompt to like press the button to use it anywhere I stood near it. So I restarted the save, and then it eventually worked.
I will
I-
say I had
No, right.
one. It was a very smooth, like very polished, no crashes. I had one bug though that was ended up being super annoying. I took out an entire base just for the last guy to be stuck in a wall and I couldn't kill him. So I had to redo the entire base again, and that was like, and it was one of the big bases, like the the big bases.
Oh,
I was so
no.
mad. That's the
No.
one part where I was like, oh gosh, bro, like this is the one bug I'm gonna get in your game. I have to redo this entire thing.
I had 4 crashes. I don't know why, but like it never bothered me because like I got back into the game so quickly. But I'm like, man, I got more crashes in this game than like it was like the same amount of crashes as Starfield, which is just funny to think about. But again, it didn't bother me because I loaded in so fast. But I think it's time we kind of go into these final thoughts. I will ask you, just like basically your final thoughts, and I guess score doesn't matter because we set it off the top. Thanks, bench. Jet, how are you feeling about this game, just overall?
Overall, I'm so glad that I got to play it. Like, shout out to my brother for letting me borrow his PS5 just for this experience because it's been
That you told
such.
me.
Yeah. It's been such a fun experience. Like a beautiful game, amazing clean combat, and a really well put together story. Like my only minor flaws were like just some of the boss fights felt a bit long, and even some of like the big mob fights felt like a bit stretched. But I still tried to challenge myself by like doing all these combos. There's probably a bunch I still like haven't fully utilized, and yeah, I definitely want to go back in and do those side quests because from what I heard from you guys, they're worth doing.
I forgot to ask also, as well, just like in your rundown, like, is it a GOTY contender?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, bench, how about you?
Well, while I was pretty critical on the game throughout this discussion, I definitely enjoyed my time with it, and it's still going to be in my top 5 for the year. So yeah, I do think it's a Game of the Year contender. In no way will it will win, but it definitely deserves to be up there.
That's good to hear. Fusion, how about you?
Yeah, it is currently my game of the year as it stands
Okay,
right
yeah.
now in November, and I do think it will. I think it's a lock, honestly, now for it to be in that top 5, top 6 at the Keeleys. So I don't think there's. I think it was funny that the conversations beforehand were like, this game might not make it. It was always gonna make it. I don't know what people were saying. Anyways, I think at the end of the day, Insomniac delivered on a very good sequel that I think is the best Spider-Man game of the 3 so far, of 2018 Miles Morales and this one. I think this is the best one. I think it's the fullest package of. Granted, we have to get the DLCs yet, and like hopefully the DLCs even improve it more. But I just think at its base, it's the best in combat, traversal, story in a lot of areas. I just think I had my concern before the game came out that I'm like, can they deliver on what they're promising? And I think they under-delivered in some areas, but I think they more than delivered in most of it. And I'm so excited to see like where this trilogy goes and like how they wrap up the story. Like it's just so exciting to see. Like I love the Insomniac universe and what they've created, and I'm very happy with this video game.
Hell yeah. Moon, how about you?
I'm gonna echo a lot of things that Fusion said. It's currently my game of the year. The only thing that can bring it down is the fact that for better or for worse, it is more Spider-Man 2018, just fixed up a little bit more. Like just everything got tuned up a bit. But and that's what we wanted from like in the traversal section and the fighting. Now it did underperform in certain aspects like pacing and whatnot and some side content. But I do think what everything that is really good or was improved definitely outweighs what was either underdeveloped or underdeveloped is probably the only word there, or under delivered. But the only thing I could see taking over this as game of the year is I would rather give it to a newer game that did something new and interesting rather than a game that took an already excellent game of Spider-Man 2018 and then just built upon it. But that's just a personal me thing. Like some other people could easily just say, well, this is exactly what I wanted. And I almost say that in a way too. Like it could be my game of the year because it is what I wanted. It was just more Spider-Man 2018 and in a better delivered package. So it's a weird crossroads of more of the same, but not at the same time. And I don't know how I feel about that giving something like that my game of the year. But that's a whole other thing we'll talk about at the end of the year. But it's great. It's fantastic. And like Future said, it's my favorite out of the three. And it's easily my most favorite Sony first party franchise.
Everything you're saying at the end there about like the uniqueness factor really is kind of like how I feel about this game, where it is a very iterative sequels. I love iterative sequels. My favorite game of all time is an iterative sequel at the end of the day. I think there's a place for them in GOTY conversations and like, greatest games of all time. Like, yeah, a lot of the greatest games are very iterative, but it also almost feels it's I guess the best way to look at it is that Spider-Man 2 is an improvement in almost every way from 2018. I struggle of whether or not I preferred this over 2018. I think my big thing is that I do really love the story of 2018. I do think I slightly connected with that one more, like very much, especially with like Aunt May's death, Dr. Octavius is a villain. But even then, like the improvements this game brings, especially from a gameplay standpoint, almost invalidate 2018 to the point where I am like really struggling which one I prefer. And in terms of GOTY conversations, I think this is 100% a GOTY like contender. It's currently my number 2 of this year. It almost doesn't feel like it because like right now my GOTY is Zelda, and I just feel like it is just better in a lot of like by a substantial amount. And that's not like downplaying Spider-Man. I think Spider-Man is absolutely phenomenal, but I think what Zelda did was so special. And Spider-Man is a very phenomenal game, but it's missing that it factor for me. Like the big thing is Alan Wake 2. I think this game is substantially better than Alan Wake 2, but I find Alan Wake 2 just a much more interesting game. I find it something that I'm going to be thinking about a lot more than Spider-Man, despite Spider-Man being a much better game, in my opinion.
It's like I said, whereas something like Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom, there was major changes and upgrades and whatnot, and even from like Alan Wake to Alan Wake 2. But here's Spider-Man 2018, already like a near perfect game, so we're just doing near perfect yet again.
Exactly. And it's like one of those things where iterative sequels, I love them, but sometimes it's like I don't think about them enough to really like it's tough for me to give it GOTY in that regard. Even then, like Fusion, Moon, both of you would say it's GOTY, and also Jet. All of you guys saying it's GOTY, it's like, yeah, sure, 100%. It deserves it. It is such an amazing game. I am so happy that one of my all-time favorite game developers, Insomniac Games, I love these guys since the Ratchet days. I love the Spyro games. I am an Insomniac fanboy through and through, and I'm so happy they're finally getting the recognition they deserve. And I'm pretty much sitting here like happy that this game is getting the love it deserves. I have my issues, but it's something special.
I'm glad they cracked 90 on this one. They definitely deserved that
God.
after all this time.
The last game to crack 90 was Up Your Arsenal, Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, which was 2004. And like, I mean, hey, that game's fucking like a masterpiece.
It was awesome to see the devs like genuinely excited about cracking 90. Like it was
Exactly.
it was shown that they wanted to crack that 90 threshold, and like on Twitter, like how many of the devs went out there and were like really excited that they were like, this game hit a 91, like 92, blah blah. Like it was really cool to see that, like, because Insomniac's they're so good at making those like 8.5s or like right there on the cusp of 9, and it was just really cool to see like them finally like, just break the threshold.
They hit it. For sure. I mean, a lot of their games have hit 9s and 10s for me personally, but hey, you know what? That's just me. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much everything that we have to say about Spider-Man 2. A game that everyone should play. If you watch this whole food coma and you haven't played it, bro, get to it. Get to it already. But
and
yeah,
for those who have played it, do you want us to come back to this after the DLC is done and talk about more theories and overall package of Spider-Man 2 and what we think could happen in the future, and comparing Spider-Man 1 and its DLC to Spider-Man 2 and its DLC. Maybe does the DLC sway, like, do we prefer one or the other? That'd be an interesting topic. So do we want to take a show of hands of the 5 of us? Who do we want to do that?
What
This
was
is
the
a work
question?
meeting type deal. Okay. You know what? Don't ask much for anything.
No, leave it in the
Fusion,
comments. Leave it in the comments. Do you want to see us
Yeah.
talk about the DLC?
That's the big thing. If you leave a comment, we're gonna respond to just like your thoughts on the overall story. We appreciate all types of feedback. But yeah, again, you can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Audible. Like the podcast, subscribe. It helps us out a lot. We're growing. Check us out on Twitter. Check out the main show, Slice of Gaming podcast, every Saturday. And hopefully you guys enjoyed. I'm very happy with how we did. And I think it's time we all go to sleep. Good night, everybody.
See ya.
Good night.